The Russia-Ukraine war is supposed to be wrapping up. Multiple rounds of peace negotiations have taken place. The U.S. is hosting more talks over the weekend to come to a final settlement. But instead of winding down, the war seems to be expanding. To be specific, it's expanding geographically. Ukraine's latest attack on Russia took place far away in the Mediterranean Sea. The attack was unprecedented in terms of distance, and it marks a new phase of the war. Here's a report.
Russia and Ukraine are neighbors. They share an almost 2,000-kilometer-long border. So, you might assume that the war would be restricted to this vast battlefront. We may even expect the fighting to spill over into their shared water body, the Black Sea. That has certainly been the case throughout the war, which is fast approaching the 4-year mark. But on Friday, Ukraine released this video. Kyiv claims that it shows Ukrainian drones attacking a tanker from Russia's Shadow Fleet. Ukrainian attacks on Russian oil tankers aren't novel anymore. Kyiv has attacked several of them in the Black Sea already. But Friday's attack took place around here, in the Mediterranean Sea, a little north of Libya's Benghazi. That's about 2,000 kilometers away from Ukraine, the farthest afield that they have struck so far. The ship has been identified as the Qendil. It's a crude oil tanker registered to Oman. Reports say the ship made port in Suez on December 16th and it was headed to Ust-Luga in Russia's Leningrad region. But then Ukraine launched its attack, leading the Qendil to change its route. Reports say it is now on its way to Aliaga in Turkey. Ukraine says the attack on the tanker was justified. The ship has been sanctioned by the UK and Europe. Kyiv says the tanker is a legitimate target because it helps fill the Russian coffers and thus fuel Moscow's war machine. And Ukraine says that it will not stop with these attacks. The war has expanded. It is no longer confined to the immediate area around Russia and Ukraine. And this expansion comes even as a Russian delegation is heading to the US to discuss peace terms. Will the Mediterranean attack derail the already tenuous negotiations? Will Moscow be willing to turn a blind eye for the sake of peace? Or has the latest attack just ensured that the war will go on in an ever-expanding arena? Bureau Report, WION. World is One.
Let's talk now to retired Lieutenant Colonel Daniel L. Davis, who's a military expert and host of Daniel Davis Deep Dive on YouTube. Colonel Davis, it's good to see you and thank you very much for your time. Direct question. Do you actually think that this war is expanding, having in mind what happened in the Mediterranean Sea?
Evidently has. There's no question that it has. And one of the things I've been concerned about from the beginning is that if you start expanding the war beyond the boundaries of Ukraine, then you risk drawing in other countries. Now, so far, it's just been Russian assets outside of the war zone. So in one sense, you can say, well, it hasn't expanded the target countries, only the geography of it. But anytime you get outside of that, you start especially hitting countries with the ship has flags of other countries. It's located in the ports of other countries, and you have the risk of the thing expanding. But the bottom line is, though, this is not going to have any impact on the war whatsoever. It's going to inflame situation, makes a great video, really dramatic, etc. But there are 1,300 of these ships. Russia also has, of course, pipelines and many other ways to get fuel to its customers and get paid for that. And listen, this one thing that everybody needs to understand, there is no action that doesn't have a counteraction. And Putin said, I think it was yesterday, that there will be a response, and Russia for sure will do something. My guess is that they will keep it inside the Ukraine borders. I don't think that they want to expand it, but they will respond in some way that will probably be pretty painful, probably in Odessa, I would guess.
Colonel Davis, where do you see this going? Because we have been talking about talks for 2 months now, talks between the United States and Ukraine, talks between the United States and Russia, talks between the United States and Europe and Ukraine, and now talks between the Russia, United States and Ukraine. It's all confusing. Where is it all heading?
Yeah, and really, honestly, you can say ever since President Trump was inaugurated in January, there's been all kinds of talks between all these different parties back and forth. Sometimes it looked things were good. Sometimes it looked like they were going down. It was bad. We have to understand that historically speaking, anytime you want to have a negotiated settlement to end a war, it's very often measured in years. So this by itself is not surprising, and especially when you see that neither side recognizes that it is in the losing side and that it needs to have a negotiated settlement. Ukraine is definitely on the lower end of it, and they are on the losing side, but they have not lost. And according to some sources that I had just from a couple of days ago inside of Kiev, they don't believe that the war is lost. They think that they have to keep fighting. If they keep fighting, maybe some help will come from some other quarter. Maybe they'll draw some other folks into it. Maybe Russia will get tired, etc. So they don't feel a need to have a negotiated settlement on terms acceptable to Russia. And Russia is on the power dynamic upside. So they definitely don't feel any need to have a compromise on anything. So they won't. Therefore, we have the sides really on polar opposites, and nobody's moving closer to each other right now. It's just a lot of talks. But unfortunately, that's just the way things work in the realm of diplomacy.
All right. Colonel Davis, it's good to see you. We'll have to end it there. Thank you for talking to us today.
Thank you.